There's a calm surrender to the rush of day, when the heat of the rolling wind can't be turned away.
When Jonathan Antoine first stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage, the world witnessed something unforgettable. His voice, warm, powerful, and overflowing with emotion, left the judges speechless and the audience in awe. But behind that incredible moment was a young man carrying enormous pressure, personal challenges, and expectations far heavier than most people ever realized. From the outside, it looked like he was destined for instant stardom. Yet behind the scenes, Jonathan was navigating a journey filled with struggle, growth, and transformation that very few people knew about. As the spotlight grew brighter, so did the weight on his shoulders. Fans wondered why he seemed to step away from the public eye at times, why his journey unfolded differently from what many expected, and what truly happened after the show ended. Rumors floated around, assumptions spread online, and people questioned whether his career had taken an unexpected turn. Now, the real story finally comes into focus, one that is emotional, inspiring, and far more human than anyone imagined. Jonathan's path after BGT was shaped not just by talent, but by personal battles, life-changing decisions, and a determination to build a future on his own terms. His evolution from a shy teenager into a confident artist is filled with moments of reflection, resilience, and courage. This is the truth behind Jonathan Antoine's journey, what he faced, what he overcame, and where his life has taken him since the world first fell in love with his extraordinary voice. When Jonathan Antoine first stepped onto the Britain's Got Talent stage, the atmosphere in the room was filled with curiosity. Viewers saw a teenager who looked overwhelmed, nervous, and unsure of what to expect. Standing beside his singing partner, he kept his head slightly lowered, as though he wanted to blend into the background rather than stand in the spotlight. No one watching that moment could have predicted what was about to happen. It appeared to be just another audition until Jonathan began to sing. The instant his voice emerged, the entire room fell silent. The judges leaned forward, visibly shocked. Audience members exchanged glances of disbelief, wondering how a young man so shy could possess a voice so powerful, warm, and emotionally rich. That single moment changed everything. Overnight, Jonathan went from an anxious teenager standing quietly on stage to a global sensation whose voice touched millions. Clips of the performance spread across social platforms. Television programs replayed the audition repeatedly, and music critics praised his natural ability. The world had discovered a rare talent, but very few understood the weight of the journey behind it. Jonathan's path to that stage had not been simple. Throughout his early life, he battled intense self-doubt and emotional challenges that often made him feel isolated. While others his age were navigating normal teenage concerns, Jonathan wrestled with insecurities that shaped how he saw himself and the world around him. Music became his safe place, a way to release emotions he struggled to express in everyday life. It gave him comfort, focus, and purpose. Yet despite the deep connection he had with music, he often questioned whether he was good enough. Even with encouragement from teachers and loved ones, Jonathan found it difficult to see his own potential. Walking onto the BGT stage required courage far beyond what viewers recognized. To him, it was a frightening moment, an encounter with a massive audience, bright lights, and countless expectations. But once he began singing, something shifted. The confidence he rarely felt began to rise, anchored by the emotional connection he had with his voice. He wasn't just performing a song. He was sharing a piece of himself that he had long kept guarded. The reaction from the judges and the audience did more than celebrate his talent. It validated his belief in himself for the first time. But while it looked like a dream unfolding on screen, the sudden attention came with challenges Jonathan was not fully prepared for. Fame arrived quickly and intensely. Millions of viewers watched his every appearance, and media outlets began discussing his future as though it had already been decided. For a teenager still discovering who he was, the pressure felt heavy. Behind the scenes, Jonathan struggled with the adjustments that come with sudden visibility. The overwhelming support from fans was comforting, but it also created expectations. People predicted instant stardom, constant success, and a flawless journey. Jonathan felt the weight of those predictions, worrying whether he could live up to them. He continued practicing tirelessly, but he also faced private emotional battles that made the journey more complex than it appeared. Despite this, Jonathan showed remarkable determination. He began working harder than ever, strengthening his voice, refining his technique, and gradually building the confidence he lacked. Family, close friends, and mentors supported him, reminding him that he didn't need to prove anything. His talent already spoke for itself. Slowly, Jonathan started believing in that idea. He realized that his worth didn't depend on praise or public approval, but on the connection he had with his music. The world remembers his audition as a spectacular breakthrough, but for Jonathan, it was the moment that forced him to confront his fears, trust his abilities, and see himself through a new lens. It was the beginning of a journey filled with growth, challenges, and transformation far deeper than anyone watching from home ever understood. After Jonathan Antoine's audition went viral, the reaction from the public was overwhelming. Millions of people around the world praised his voice, called him the future of classical music, and predicted a career filled with instant success. For viewers, it seemed like Jonathan had everything: support, recognition, and a powerful start that most young singers could only dream of. But behind the scenes, the sudden attention came with emotional weight that was difficult for him to carry. Jonathan was still just a teenager, adjusting not only to fame, but also to the expectations placed upon him by strangers who believed they already knew his future. The industry can be intense, especially for someone still developing their identity. Jonathan found himself facing pressure from every direction. Producers wanted interviews, magazines requested photos, and fans expected updates. While the praise was uplifting, it also reminded him that one wrong step could lead to criticism or disappointment. The world loved his talent, but it didn't always understand the emotional complexity of being thrust into celebrity life. Overnight, Jonathan tried to stay focused, but even small tasks felt heavier under the constant attention. During this time, he continued performing with dedication, but the pace was exhausting. He spent long hours practicing, traveling, and preparing for appearances. The public saw polished performances, but they didn't see the moments of fatigue, insecurity, or emotional overwhelm. Jonathan cared deeply about delivering his best and didn't want to let anyone down. However, he often felt torn between fulfilling expectations and dealing with his personal struggles quietly, away from public view. One of the biggest challenges was learning to handle the commentary that came with being in the public eye. While many praised him, others offered unsolicited opinions about his appearance, style, and future. Even harmless comments felt heavy, especially for someone already sensitive to outside judgment. Jonathan tried to ignore the unnecessary noise, but it wasn't always easy. He had to remind himself that his talent, not the opinions of strangers, defined who he was as an artist. Through these challenges, Jonathan began discovering the strength he didn't know he possessed. Instead of withdrawing, he started committing more deeply to his craft. Music once again became his emotional anchor, helping him navigate the chaos around him. Each performance became a way to reconnect with the part of himself untouched by fame. No matter how stressful the industry became, singing made him feel grounded. Support from family and mentors played a major role during this time. They encouraged him to move at his own pace, reminding him that he didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Their guidance helped him understand that growth takes time, and that success doesn't have to follow the timeline others expect. These were lessons Jonathan carried into the next stage of his career, where he slowly began taking control of his path rather than letting outside forces shape it. As the spotlight intensified, Jonathan also started understanding the importance of self-care. He learned how to manage stress, set personal boundaries, and protect his emotional well-being. This period became a time of transition, marking the shift from a shy teenager to someone who understood the value of balance and resilience. Most fans saw Jonathan's time after Britain's Got Talent as a smooth journey to fame, but the reality was far more layered. While his talent continued to grow, so did his inner strength. He faced pressure, judgment, and overwhelming expectations, but he pushed forward with determination. This was the stage of his life where he realized that true success isn't just about standing on a stage. It's about learning who you are, building confidence from within, and continuing to move forward even when the spotlight becomes too bright. As Jonathan Antoine stepped away from the rapid pace of television fame, he entered a period of personal discovery that would shape of his life. The public saw him as a young vocalist with extraordinary talent, but Jonathan knew he needed time to understand who he was outside the world's expectations. Fame arrives suddenly, but identity develops slowly. For Jonathan, this meant stepping into a space where he could grow privately, strengthen his voice, and begin discovering the artist he wanted to become, not the one others assumed he already was. One of the most significant changes during this phase was his emotional and physical transformation. Jonathan began focusing more seriously on his health, adopting routines that supported both his voice and overall well-being. These changes weren't driven by outside pressure, but by his desire to feel stronger, more confident, and more in control of his path. As he improved his physical health, he noticed a shift in his mental strength as well. The confidence that had once felt distant began emerging naturally, helping him see himself not just as a performer, but as someone capable of shaping his own future. As Jonathan experienced this growth, he also began exploring music in deeper ways. He took vocal training more seriously, working with coaches, refining his technique, and studying classical pieces with newfound purpose. His understanding of music expanded beyond performance. It became a craft he devoted himself to mastering. He studied breathing techniques, phrasing, interpretation, and emotional delivery, gradually shaping a style that was distinctly his own. This period marked the transition from a talented young singer to a developing artist with a clear vision. Although fans often wondered why they didn't see as much of him publicly during this time, the truth is that stepping back allowed Jonathan to rebuild his foundation. He no longer had to respond to the pressure of constant cameras or interviews. Instead, he could breathe, reflect, and grow at a pace that felt healthy and meaningful. Many performers struggle with the noise that fame brings, but Jonathan's refusal to rush proved to be one of the most important choices he made. His confidence began flourishing not only through personal growth, but also through the support of people who believed in him. Encouragement from family, friends, and mentors created a circle of stability. They reminded him that his journey didn't need to mirror anyone else's. He didn't have to chase trends or rush into commercial decisions. He simply had to stay true to the voice that had moved the world. During his first appearance on national television, during this period, Jonathan also started confronting emotions he had long avoided. Fame had amplified insecurities that were already present, but this quieter phase allowed him to process them. Through music, journaling, reflection, and support from loved ones, he slowly rebuilt his sense of self-worth. He learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, it was a part of his strength. The same vulnerability that once made him hesitant to step on stage became the foundation of his ability to connect deeply with audiences. As Jonathan emerged from this period of growth, he stood stronger, more confident, and more committed to his music than ever before. The transformation was not dramatic or rushed. It was steady, patient, and genuine. Fans who encountered him later noticed the difference immediately. He carried himself with a new sense of assurance and purpose. His voice, already powerful, now carried maturity and emotional depth that only come from experience. This stage of his journey revealed something important. Jonathan Antoine was no longer defined solely by a television show. He was becoming an artist in his own right, one who understood the value of time, resilience, and self-discovery. The world would soon see the results of the quiet but powerful journey he had taken. Jonathan Antoine's journey after Britain's Got Talent is far more inspiring than most people realize. While many expected him to fade away after the show, he quietly built a life and career shaped by dedication rather than pressure. Today, he stands as an artist who has not only grown in talent, but also in strength, confidence, and emotional maturity. His story is no longer just about a young man with a remarkable voice. It is about someone who learned how to rise above challenges and carve a path that truly belongs to him. One of the most remarkable transformations in his adult life has been the way he carries himself. The shy teenager who once avoided eye contact now speaks with warmth, clarity, and calm confidence. Jonathan understands the value of his voice, not just in performance, but also in shaping his message as an artist. Over time, he learned that his journey wasn't meant to follow the traditional blueprint of fame. Instead, it was meant to unfold slowly, allowing him to grow without losing himself in the noise of public expectations. Jonathan's music career blossomed in its own time. He began releasing albums that reflected his personal growth and artistic evolution. Instead of rushing into styles that didn't suit him, he focused on pieces that allowed him to express emotion with sincerity. His recordings highlight rich vocal tones, maturity, and an understanding of musical interpretation that can only come from lived experience. Fans often mention how his recent performances carry a sense of peace and strength, evidence of someone who found his voice not just technically but emotionally. Beyond music, Jonathan has also used his platform to inspire others who struggle with self-doubt or emotional challenges. He speaks openly about the difficulties he faced and how he learned to navigate them. His honesty resonates deeply with fans, especially those who see parts of their own stories reflected in his journey. Jonathan does not position himself as someone who has all the answers. Instead, he shares what helped him, offering encouragement without judgment. This authenticity has become one of the most admired aspects of who he is today. Another important part of his current life is balance. Jonathan has learned how to support his well-being through healthy routines, emotional reflection, and meaningful connections with loved ones. He understands that a fulfilling life requires more than professional success. It requires inner peace, supportive relationships, and time to reconnect with oneself. Jonathan's ability to maintain this balance is one of the reasons his career continues to feel steady, grounded, and genuine. He no longer feels pressured to meet unrealistic expectations. He focuses instead on staying true to his craft and his values. What makes his present chapter even more touching is how deeply grateful he remains for the support he has received over the years. Fans who discovered him during Britain's Got Talent continue to follow his journey, celebrating his growth and cheering for his achievements. Jonathan never takes this loyalty for granted. He often expresses appreciation for the people who believed in him from the beginning, and for those who joined along the way. His connection with his audience goes beyond performance. It is rooted in shared emotion, mutual respect, and genuine warmth. Today, Jonathan Antoine stands as a symbol of quiet resilience. His story shows that personal growth does not require dramatic moments. It requires patience, self-awareness, and the courage to keep moving forward. He may not be the loudest celebrity in the headlines, but he is someone who has built a meaningful life through steady progress and heartfelt dedication. His journey continues, not defined by television appearances or public expectations, but by the passion he brings to his music and the compassion he carries within himself. Jonathan's story is far from over. With each new performance, each thoughtful project, and each step he takes, he shows the world what it truly means to grow with grace. His past shaped him, his challenges strengthened him, and his future remains full of promise.